Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to SLW. Grace be to you and peace from Yahweh our Father and from our Adonai Yahawashai HaMashiach. Here at SLW, we use the Hebrew names of our Father and Messiah, Yahweh for our Father and Yahawashai our Messiah. My name is Tracy. Welcome to all new or returning. I'm so happy that you're here, giving all praise and glory to our Heavenly Father. Hallelujah. So I'm here. My little one's in her choir session. Been doing some reading, catching up on a few things. And then I remembered that I'm supposed to be on here sharing a word that the Father led me to this week, actually, leading up to my 40th birthday. So yes, your girl or your woman, I am a woman. I'm 40. I am 40 today. I am 40. Well, technically, okay, technically, I'm not 40 yet because I was born in the evening. Mum said between like 9 and 10, like 9:40 or 10:40 or something like that. So I'm still 39. I'm still 39. No, I'm 40. Get over it. So leading up to this birthday, I remember I was just sitting and I don't know, I've always, over the last, I think, year and a half or 2 years, I just felt like there was something coming after my 40th birthday. And when I was sitting, kind of sitting and praying and just, talking to Daddy as we do, I started thinking about the number 40, and then what came up was 40 in regards to the 40 years in the wilderness when the Israelites came out of Egypt. No, not came out, was saved out of Egypt, and through disobedience they were wandering in the wilderness for like 40 years, right? So I looked up certain scriptures. I just put in 40, just kind of reading up on all different scriptures surrounding 40 and the significance of 40. And what came to mind, or what kind of linked with what I was already put in my heart in regards to the 40 years in the wilderness, is in Deuteronomy chapter 8. Now, the whole chapter, I'm going to say, is, when I read it, it was just like, wow. It kind of spoke to me in regards to what I've been thinking and feeling over the last, year and a half, 2 years. So I was thinking of like reading through the whole thing and then speaking about it, but I feel like it might be better to just read and speak where led to in regards to where I am in the chapter. So if you want to read along, please do so. That would be great. You can pause this and get your Bible. And we're in Deuteronomy chapter 8. Deuteronomy chapter 8. And then there's just been all these other little things that are happening around me, and sometimes it's so easy for us to be like, oh, coincidence, or oh yeah, that's just, we forget that nothing is a coincidence. Everything works as Yah wills it to work. And honestly, when you start just seeing everything as purposeful, you also begin to look at, well, I know for me anyway, I'm really beginning to look at, or and not just be intentional, but it's almost like that pause and stop and reflect and to see and to hear and to feel and to experience every little thing. And of course, I begin to speak and I get burpy. So I'm sorry. If you've been on here for a while, this is just how it goes. This is just this is the flow. Apparently, this is how this channel is supposed to be. She speaks and she burps every now and then. I'm so sorry. It's not ladylike, but I don't think I've ever kind of like been like burp loudly on here. So yeah, that's not ladylike. But burping is part of how he made us. It's something that he put in us. Although why it keeps happening every time I'm recording, I do not know. Maybe because I'm talking so fast, or I'm talking a lot, or I'm not breathing correctly, right? As I'm talking, I'm not, my breath control isn't good. I don't know. Anywho, apologies. as always. And let's get into this because I am behind a little bit. All right. So, Deuteronomy chapter 8. All the commandments which I command thee this day shall ye observe to do, that ye may live and multiply, and go in and possess the land which Yahweh sware unto your fathers. And thou shalt remember all the way which Yahweh thy Elohim led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee and to prove thee, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no. So I'll just stop there for a second. That was verses 1 and 2. And when I read this bit, it took me, I had like this, almost this flashback or this looking back of in 2022, where it felt like this urgency to seek him, this urgency to actually, change and to actually open up the door to him. There was this urgency. And when I read, especially the line where it talks about to remember all that Yahweh that Elohim led thee, how he led me in these 40 years in the wilderness to humble me, or to humble thee and to prove thee, and this bit, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no. And it is this testing that was happening. And honestly, for a long time, I didn't know. I was unaware. I wasn't willing to listen. But then now, when it got to 2022 and that urgency, it was like, are you going, what's in your heart? Are you going to come to me? Are you going to let me in? And are you going to be obedient to me? Even now, from 2022 up until now, it is, are you going to be obedient? Even when what you thought was to happen or whatever doesn't happen. Even when this or when that or like whatever it is. I had to test you. I have to test you to see what's in your heart, to know whether you will keep my commandments or not. Now we'll talk a bit more about what else kind of came to me in regards to that as we read. But it is this testing, this time of before. And remember, this is before they went into the land. This is before they entered into the promised land. A testing has to happen. They were saved, then they were given the commandments, then they disobeyed, then they had to be tested, and and he had to prove to see. They had to prove that yes, we are willing to follow you, or willing to keep your commandments. So let's read on from verse 3. And he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with manna which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man doth not live by bread alone. That he might make thee know that man doth not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of Yahweh doth man live. Many of us do know that that verse, that man doth not live by bread alone. But here is the thing, if we now take it back a little bit, and here's what was happening with me, I was taking it back a little bit and looking at, to let you know that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of Yahweh, and then taking it back to then in the wilderness, him having to prove them to see whether they would keep his commandments, and that the life is with, yes, the word, food, bread, actual bread, food, but also life through the word, through the commandments, the keeping of the commandments. And I know in these last, 2.5 years, 3 years, where I'm coming into this, and I'm compared to people that I'm coming across, and they've been doing this a lot longer than I have. Yet my understanding of, well, no, we have to keep the commandments. The commandments are, they're the reason why Israel was punished because of disobedience by breaking the commandments. And to understand that we do not live by bread alone, it is through these commandments that we live. And the more, and here's the thing, anybody who's living the same way, I'm sure you can testify, in keeping the commandments, there at first it can, some of them might be a bit of a challenge because it is a lifestyle change. And whenever there is a lifestyle change, there is going to be a bit of of wrestling with it, especially when you're doing this lifestyle change, when you're so much older, when the certain beliefs and certain systems have been programmed in you. But it is possible because people change their lifestyles all the time. Because why? They know and understand that the lifestyle change needs to happen. I now know and understand that my lifestyle change from the world into being a disciple and a true child of Yah and following his commandments, like that needs to happen. But once you get into that groove, it does become easier. But that testing has to happen. Like in that wilderness time, it's testing. It is testing to see whether you'll keep them or not. Like where your heart is. Is it truly with me or not? In verse 4, it says, "Thy raiment waxed not old upon thee, neither did thy foot swell these 40 years." So although you were in testing, although he was putting you through it to prove whether you'll keep his commandments or not, you never lacked anything. And I looked back, and this was the time where I was just looking back on my life and this is pre-repentance and pre coming into the covenant and, pre-yahawashai, right? Somehow I was always looked after. I was always looked after. Life wasn't great, but many times he protected me and pulled me out of some sticky situations. So reading that, I was just like, oh, Father, it's so true. Like I was always clothed. I was always moving. I was always looked after. He was always looking after me. And it's that he looks after you or protects you while he's calling you and while he's trying to prove, to see, are you going to come to me or not? Are you going to realize and remember that it's me who's doing all of this? Or are you still going to be leaning on the word and your own understanding? Whether you know or not, because even in those times, he was sending people. He was sending people. It was just a case of I just didn't want to hear, I wasn't ready to hear, whatever the reason is. People were there, it's just that I was not opening myself up to the messengers that he was sending. Verse 5 says, "Thou shalt also consider in thine heart that as a man chasteneth his son, so Yahweh thy Elohim chasteneth thee. Therefore," this is verse 6, "therefore thou shalt keep my commandments of Yahweh thy Elohim." Sorry, "therefore thou shalt keep the commandments of Yahweh thy Elohim, to walk in his ways and to fear him." And it is that discipline, that discipline that we get from him. And knowing what I know now, looking back, I can see where he was trying to discipline me. I can see where he was calling and knocking and saying, okay, right, I saved you that time. Do you see? Do you see? Okay, now open your eyes, hear what I'm saying, and turn back to me. But obviously I was still I didn't have eyes to see. I didn't have ears to hear. And this thing of eyes to see and ears to hear, it is so true. And I feel like many people think of it in terms of an unbeliever and a believer, right? Somebody who, who's somebody who's in the world versus somebody who's in the who's we'll say who loves God and who reads their Bible and stuff. But it goes beyond just that, because there are many who are doing those things. There are many who are reading the Bible. There are many who have been going to church. There are many who, have said and have expressed that, yes, I love Jesus. I love the Father, the Creator, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yet in truth, they too don't have eyes to see and ears to hear, because they're not hearing what is true, and they're not seeing what is true. But that's a video for another day. So now from verse 7 to verse 9, I just put here, see it. So I don't know if you want to close your eyes and just visualize this. For Yahweh thy Elohim bringeth thee into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and depths that spring out of valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of oil, olive and honey, a land wherein thou shalt eat bread without scarceness. Thou shalt not lack anything in it, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills thou mayest dig brass. So when I was reading that, it was like, so this is where you have been, this is why you were there, but now this is what I'm bringing you in. This is what I'm taking you in. But before I could take you here, before I could bring you in here, I had to know your heart. I had to know whether you are willing to commit to me and to keep my commandments. So when I read all that, I was like, oh my goodness, Father, this is amazing. This is beautiful. Oh, thank you, Abba. Thank you, Abba. Thank you, Abba. And just thanking him in thanksgiving and glorifying him. And then I read the next bit. When thou hast eaten, so we're now in verse 10. When thou hast eaten and art full, then thou shalt bless Yahweh thy Elohim for the good land which he hath given thee. Beware that thou forget not Yahweh thy Elohim in not keeping his commandments, and his judgments, and his statutes, which I command thee this day, lest when you hast eaten and art full, and hast built goodly houses, and dwelt therein, and when thy herds and thy flocks multiply, and thy silver and thy gold is multiplied, and all that thou hast is multiplied, then thine heart be lifted up, and thou forget Yahweh thy Elohim, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, who led the, you know what, I'm going to leave that from verse 15 onwards a little bit. You guys, when I read the next bit, I was like, it hit me like a, but, however, listen. And here's where it was like, listen, and listen good. You're coming into this land. But now when the going is good and things are good and all this is happening for you and everything is going well and you're seeing my hand, don't then forget who did this, who brought this. Don't forget to then also what it says in verse 11, beware thou not forget Yahweh thy Elohim in not keeping his commandments and his judgments and his statutes, which I command thee this day. Do not forget to keep the commandments that I have already given you. Do not now think, yay, I made it, I'm good, and now you no longer keep the commandments. And it got me thinking about so many, kind of got me thinking about particular artists or, certain people, famous people who have come into the public eye. And a lot of them started off and it's like they had this zeal for God. They had this love and they started off with those intentions. And many were blessed because of it, right? They were anointed in a way. But then they turned and then they started catering to the world. They started catering to man. And now I understood, I don't know, I just started looking at their experiences differently, but also understanding the fall differently. Because the warning is here. The warning is here. Many people then get sidetracked with attaining more of the things, and the vain things. There's so many things, right, in Ecclesiastes where it talks about, what is vain, what is nothing. Like, you have all this stuff to begin with because of Yah. All good things are from Yah. Don't forget. Keep his commandments, keep his statutes and his judgments, keep them. They were warned before they even went in. It was like, it's going to taste so good. You guys, you are going to enjoy it and love it so much. But in that, in those moments, in that just having and just being, oh, life is good. Remember why life is good. Remember why life is good. And verse 15 says, who led thee through that great and terrible wilderness, wherein were fiery serpents and scorpions and drought, where there was no water, who brought thee forth water out of the rock of flint. There, I just had this imagery of when some of the experiences I was talking about before, obviously not in detail, but where he's really saved me. And it's like, it was those moments. There were fiery serpents, there were scorpions, there was drought. There were all these things that were happening in that wilderness, but yet he kept me and protected me like he did the Israelites in those 40 years. Verse 16 says, who fed thee in the wilderness with manna, which thy fathers knew not, that he might humble thee, and that he might prove thee, to do thee good at thy latter end. Verse 17 says, and thou say in thine heart, my power and the might of mine hand hath gotten me this wealth. No. 18, but thou shalt remember that Yahweh thy Elohim, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant which he sware unto thy fathers, as it is this day. Remember who gives you all these things. It is not you, it is him. Verse 19, and it shall be, if thou do at all forget Yahweh thy Elohim, and walk after other gods, and serve them, and worship them, I testify against you this day, that ye shall surely perish. As the nations which Yahweh destroyeth before your face, so shall ye perish, because ye would not be obedient unto the voice of Yahweh your Elohim. I finished reading this, and I've been reading this all week, and I was like, got it. I understand. And first of all, I was dancing. Right? I was like, yay! I'm out of the wilderness. Oh yeah, I'm coming out of the wilderness. But then you remember those, but don't forget his commandments. Don't then, now that you're full and now that you're wealthy, or whatever it is that he's bringing you into, whatever your good land is, don't forget Yahweh. It says, if ye not be obedient unto the voice of Yahweh, you're going to perish. You're going to perish. It is about obedience. And we see it over and over again with the Israelites. They went to the land. Well, they were out in the wilderness. They disobeyed. They perished. They had to go in the wilderness. They were out of the wilderness. They came into the land. They were disobedient. They went into captivity. They came out of captivity. They were disobedient again. They went into captivity. Like, they're scattered now because of disobedience. Like, because they're not listening to the command. They disobeyed the commands. And here is the thing, doing the commandments, it is fun, it is joyful, it is a pleasure. It is a pleasure to be obedient to my Father, because I've been disobedient for so long, and I have seen that disobedience doesn't bear any good fruit. Even while you're out there in the club, yeah, backing it up or whatever and drinking until, you're slurring and you're making very, very poor decisions. That's not fun, that's pain. I'm telling you, like from my experience, that was pain. You saw me laughing, you would think I'm having the time of my life. And at the time, that's what it felt like. But being now on this other side, that was not fun. I was in pain. I was in pain and I didn't know it. Sorry, so my little one is just getting back into the car. So you can just gonna hear a load of stuff being shoved around. I'm speaking, I'm recording something. Oh. That was pure pain. It is only now that I find peace, but I find peace from his word. Thankfully, I'm pretty much finished, but I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to wrap it up saying, some of you are coming out of your wilderness season. You're coming into that good land that he has promised you, whatever that good land looks like to you. Do not forget who has brought you here. Do not forget the lessons, the teachings. Do not forget his commandments. While you are sitting pretty and enjoying, give glory to Yah. Remember Yah. Remember all that he has instructed. Remember, because he that giveth also taketh away. All right, so join us next time as we explore, study, and are changed by the word of Yah and his Holy Spirit. Until then, Yahweh bless thee and keep thee. Yahweh make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. Yahweh lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. Okay, bye. How did it go?